Welcome to The Next Level, conversations that propel business. The next hour is all about the entrepreneur, why they start businesses, how they make their businesses grow, how they overcome failures and achieve success. Your hosts are Bob Gibbons, founder of Riata Commercial Realty, a commercial real estate advisory and tenant advocacy firm, and Stephen Nooner, founder and CEO of Alkali, a company with a unique process that helps businesses more effectively buy and manage their insurance programs. Bob and Stephen will ask probing questions to find impactful solutions that will help take your business to the next level. And now, here's Bob Gibbons and Stephen Nooner.
Welcome to The Next Level, conversations that propel business. This is your host, Bob Gibbons.
I was going to say, who are you? But
I know.
wait, there's more. I'm Stephen Nooner, and we're your hosts, and I'm really excited to introduce our guest today, a guest who needs no introduction in my world, but to you guys, I might need to introduce him.
Might help.
Might help. My good friend, Chris English, founder of English Insurance Group, is here with us. A very successful boutique insurance practice providing a full range of property and casualty insurance services. I promise he's an interesting guy. Don't tune it off.
You said
yet.
insurance.
I know it's insurance, but this is one of the good guys. Really excited to talk to him. I'm really glad to hear. Welcome, Chris.
Guys, thank you very much. I'm excited to be here and just visit and share.
Well, glad you're on the show with us today. We'll get to your company in just a moment, but we always like to start off with what we call wisdom of others. And sometimes we use the quotes given to us by guests, sometimes not. But you kind of pulled a, I don't know what to call it, Stephen, the trump card,
move?
the God card.
Yeah.
Let's not go with the trump card. Let's go with the God card, because you gave us a quote from the Bible, so I kind of have to use that. So Proverbs 18:2, a fool does not delight in understanding, but only in revealing his own mind. Why is that a great quote for you? Why do you like that?
It's really a reminder to myself. I like to talk a lot, and I find myself using words all the time. And so I kept it on my email, and I keep it in front of me all the time to remind myself. It's not about me. To ask questions, to learn about the other person. So any fool can talk and tell you how great they are, but it takes a little bit bigger heart to sit back and let the other person talk.
So I thought this whole time that you only sent that to me because you're trying to tell me something.
Well, there's a little behind that too, Steve. But no, it's really just a personal reminder. I think it's a great way to sit back and just remind myself, hey, take a deep breath. It's not about telling how much you know or how great you are, but really just listening to maybe what the other issue is with the other person, whether it's business or personal, and then see how you can add value.
It's kind of like the quote I heard about, you have two ears and one mouth, use them
Absolutely.
in proportion. And, that's hard to do sometimes. You want to look smart to a client or to impress someone. But you know what? A lot of times the best way to impress someone is to make them the focus, not yourself.
Absolutely. So it's going to be
cool.
weird for me to be able to talk in this setting. So if I start to get quiet,
Well,
sorry, guys.
If you get a little wordy, we'll remind you
Yeah, no
of
worries.
your
Yep.
quote.
Bring it back up. Thanks.
There's a guy in my forum, in my forum for entrepreneurs organization in Dallas. His name's Wolf, and he's actually a former
guest.
Yeah, former guest, and he always talks about giving people the stage, and
I
he's
like that.
told me about a number of times, and I'm a slow learner, as you know, Bob and Chris, and it's so powerful, right? It's like in today's world, it's so easy to you just want to connect. For me, it's never about me wanting to just verbally throw up on people. But it's a way of connecting. Oh yeah, I know someone too, or I know that story too, or we've traveled there too.
Yeah.
But a lot of times he just says all the time. I can hear him in my head. Give him the stage.
That's cool. I like that. Well, Chris, we're going to give you the stage for a second. Tell us something about yourself that few people know.
Well, those are some funny questions. I thought about them a little bit, and some of the boring stuff is, hey, I love to scuba dive. My wife and I went on to Bonaire for our honeymoon. It's like this tiny little island where there's nothing there. It shuts down at 6 p.m. But it's basically the whole island is all about diving. So you drive through tank replenishments, and they got it all marked all over the island. You just go on your own and do it. So
wow,
really enjoy scuba diving. Back to being quiet. You can't really talk underwater, so it's kind of nice to be there and just be able to enjoy God's creation and sit there and really see the animals in their environment. So that's always cool. It's a neat place.
How long you been doing that?
Gosh, we got certified when we got married, so of course, you're going to ask me a question. 12, 11, I'll say 11 years.
I didn't ask that question.
I'll say 11 years. How about that? And I'll get a text soon, I'm sure. 12.
Yeah, you better. Well, that's cool though. I'd love to. I've always wanted to do that, and I've never done it. But
It's amazing.
Got to do it one of these days. We scuba, but snorkel.
Yep.
So share your story of how you became an entrepreneur.
Gosh, really, it really goes back probably about 12 years ago. I don't have one of these stories where I started some lemonade stand as a kid or whatever, nothing like that. My first dive into entrepreneurism was really starting English Insurance Group. And the short of it is I worked for Travelers Insurance for many years and called on a lot of the other independent agents in town and just realized, hey, this is something I really want to do. And at that time in my life was in a Bible study group, and Steve was actually a part of that group back then, and some other guys that own businesses, and just was really the catalyst to say, hey, you know what? If these guys can do it, so can I.
Yeah, can't be that hard.
That's right. No knock, Steve.
Yeah, no.
So what were you doing at
So
Travelers
true.
Insurance? What was your job there?
So twofold. One was an underwriter, so we just analyzed risk, and then the second one was as a marketing rep. So that's when I went out to the other independent agents all over the state and helped identify, why Travelers was a better market than a different one.
Okay.
And so you're sitting in there in the Bible study group, and you're like, was it one of those things was like, I've just got to go do this? Or, it had been something that you've been toying around in your head with, or?
I think it was some of both, honestly, that, I knew I always kind of wanted to do it, and being a business owner always sounded like a great idea. You see people that are business owners like, wow, I want to do that. They can go where they want and do what they want, and, ignorance is bliss, by the way.
I was going to say,
on that.
How much of that's happening?
Yeah, so, and I think just being surrounded by you guys and some of the other ones that were in that group was really just a catalyst for it, to say, you know what, if I don't do it now, I don't want to look up and be someone that's in, the later stages of my life and say I never took those risks to go and do what I really felt called to do.
In full disclosure, so I really tried to encourage Chris to come join us, which was really, really a funny story. But he really was, man. I remember you're so cool about it. You were so respectful. You're just like, hey, man, I just feel like it's something I got to go do, and if not, I'm always going to regret it. And so,
Absolutely.
Hats off to you. Good job there.
Well, thanks. Like I said, I think ignorance is bliss is another statement to say.
Well, it was super easy because I know that the first thing, it was just a rocket ship. Everything went perfect for you out of the gates, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It was super easy. No, it couldn't be farther from the truth. One of the things we always love to share is, and it's really kind of part of our testimony is we laid these great plans in place to start the agency, and my wife was doing medical equipment sales, and it was high commission.
Great job.
Great
Yeah.
income, high commission. We said, hey, if I'm going to do this, we need a more salary job for her. So we put all these plans in place, and everything lined up. We're high-fiving each other, and literally, guys, the day I turned my company car in, April picks me up, go home, to the house. I got my home office, so I'm feeling pretty cool, right? I'm a business owner now, right? Got no clients and no revenue,
Got
but
a desk.
boy, I own a business,
You're a
right?
businessman.
Computer.
And literally not an hour later, April gets a phone call, and they reduced her territory and laid her off. So we had gone from 2 incomes as a young family to 0 in a matter of literally like a half a day. So no, did not start off exactly the way we had planned, but there was a bigger plan, so we just committed to follow it.
So what did she do at that point?
Quite honestly, it was probably one of the most humbling times in our life. She went on unemployment, and in the moment, it was a super big struggle and a real big hit to kind of your ego. But we had, we're also thankful we live in a country that provides that. So in this instance, she hit the job market and went on unemployment, and worked with me a little bit in the agency. Decided at that point probably wasn't the best fit for either one of us. We needed revenue, and so she ended up finding another job and moving into the hospice segment, and worked in hospice for many years after that.
So what did you do to go out and get your first clients?
Called everyone we knew. I think it was just kind of the old school hustle game, right? You start in those concentric circles, the people that you've already told what you're going to do, and then slowly but surely move out from there. So it was friends and family, and anyone, quite honestly, anyone that was breathing or speaking, I was letting them know what we were doing at that point.
And what was your pitch? What did you tell them?
buy insurance from me so I don't starve. No, I mean, really, I mean, honestly, we laugh about it, but honestly, that was part of it. Everyone knew what was going on with us. Everyone knew, I mean, we were wide open. Everyone knew that April had lost her job. And so, it's kind of a blessing in disguise, I think, at that point, that it really cemented our faith and our commitment to each other. And then really it gave us part of a story. I mean, here we are 9 years later, still sharing that same story on how we got started.
Interesting. That's got to be a really hard thing to do. I mean, yeah, were you already licensed with Travelers?
Yes, yep. So we'd gotten, we'd laid all the groundwork the year before, and again thought we had this awesome plan, and but it didn't quite work out that way, but it still worked.
And to their credit, and to your credit, like the kind of person you were at Travelers, I mean, they offered you the opportunity to come back, right?
They sure did. Yep. They heard what happened. I'd worked there for 6 or 7 years and did a good job by them, and vice versa. They offered me the opportunity to come back because they knew it was such a big risk that we had taken, and they heard what happened. But again, that's cool. We felt led, that this was the right thing to do, and that we weren't. It's kind of one of our first tests, right? Are we going to weather the storm of a business owner, even though we were brand new, or are we going to run and hide? And I just felt God telling me, hey, just trust me. I wasn't happy about it, but let's go and see what happens. So yeah, it was a great testament to Travelers and the company they are.
So you're calling for family and friends, trying to get business. Are you just trying to sell them on home and auto insurance, or are you doing business insurance already, or what?
So our background is commercial insurance. That's all that I had done at Travelers. So the personal insurance was new to us, and so luckily our family and friends were our guinea pigs. And there's many times that, we would get requests from a mortgage company or something like, I'm Googling, like, what is this? Like, I don't even know what it is. So sorry everyone, I wrote your insurance the first year or two. Luckily, no big claims.
No fires.
Yeah, whoops. But mainly all my experience was on the business and commercial side. So that's what we were chasing, and then just using the personal insurance is an opportunity to get revenue in the front door, and survive.
Interesting. So then how did you keep track of all of this? Did you have, what kind of techniques were you using? I mean, were you just using paper and pen at this point?
No. So we decided if we were going to build it, we were going to build it right, even though, we didn't have all of the revenue. We had been diligent and good stewards of our money. So we started off with the management systems that all the big dogs would use. And so we just decided if we're going to build it, we're not building this to be a mom and pop shop. We're going to build it from the ground up to try to scale. So we went ahead and made the investments in all the proper management systems.
Okay, it seems like a big step. I mean, but I credit you for jumping in right with the right tools, because doing things with the right tools makes all the difference. I see whenever I try to do a honeydew project at home without the right tools, that doesn't always go so well, right? So
Sure.
Anyway, all right. So we're going to take a break. This is The Next Level on 1190 Talk Radio. Be back in a minute. Hi, this is Bob Gibbons with Riata Commercial Realty. If your office lease is going to be expiring in the next year or two, the one thing I would tell you definitely do not want to do is exercise a renewal option. Now, that may sound a little nuts. When you negotiate for that renewal option, why wouldn't you actually want to use it? Well, the reason is because while you want to have one as a reservation for your space so the landlord can't lease the space out from under you, that option may not actually work the way you want it to now. It may have made sense 5 years ago, but it doesn't today. The only thing that changes when you exercise a renewal option are the expiration date and the rent. But you may want to do other things like have another option to renew, have an option to terminate or expand. You may want to be able to expand now, or have a new base year for your operating expenses. There's all kinds of things that need to be considered. So we recommend that you renegotiate, not renew. For more information, contact me, Bob Gibbons, at texastenantrep.com. That's texastenantrep.com.
Welcome back. You're listening to The Next Level on 1190 AM. I'm already off to a great start. And
Porky Pig is our host.
And we are talking with Chris English Insurance Group.
So we were just talking about how you got started and the tools that you were using, and you said you just jumped in with the big boy tools right from the beginning, the stuff that guys that had been in the business for 20 years were already using, and the much bigger agencies. That had to have been a huge financial burden.
It was a big step. I mean, ultimately they've got scale too, right? So they can charge you per user or whatnot. But I mean, the big thing for us is we didn't want the stress or headache of having one system and doing it. And quite honestly, guys, I know I'm not the most organized person in the world, so we can say big tools or whatever. It was more of a save myself situation, right? We talked to a lot of other agencies. Hey, what were they using and why? And just realized that, okay, there's 2 or 3 major providers kind of in our space for management systems. And we just said, hey, you know what? Kind of like you said, let's get the right tools from the get-go, because if it's left up to my own demise, there'll be paper in my bag, paper in my car, scratch notes everywhere. Anyone that knows me knows I still do that now, but at least we've got a central place to keep that. But yes, I mean, it's not inexpensive.
No.
But, we, at that point, it was just myself, and so no office, no other overhead. So for us, it was the right investment at the right time.
Well, and if you're going to call yourself the expert, you need to have the tools to demonstrate that,
Sure.
and to manage in that way. So, that makes a lot of sense. So was this just you by yourself at this point?
It was. I mean, it was spare bedroom in the house, and like I said, April helped me, and we put computers back to back, and we're quoting, people's business and doing everything from billing to accounting to, the actual insurance work too. And it was a lot of fun, a lot of learning, but it was a lot of fun too.
So when did the first employee come along?
Well, we hired a salesperson probably about 3 years in or so, and it was a good friend of ours that had been in the industry, and so kind of brought him along, but realized, hey, we didn't have a lot of tools or resources to help him either. It was kind of jump in the deep end, It's like I'm over here selling, you're over there selling, so we were together, but, we learned a lot of lessons through that too, on being able to have the back-end support to really allow your team to survive and then to thrive.
How did you know it was time for this person to come on board?
It's just the right opportunity. It was one of those things that you talk to people about it for a while, and they were at a position, he was in a position in his life where he was ready to take a big risk too. And so, really took it as, I felt honored that someone was willing to trust my vision for what was going to happen with their life and their family, right? And also very scary too, because now it's not just about you, it's about another person and the family they represent.
So it's more about somebody that sought you out saying, hey, I want to be a part of this, than it was you going out and intentionally trying to hire somebody?
It was mutual, I would say. It was
Okay.
a very mutual thing, kind of like when Steve and I were in a Bible study together, him and I were, and I think he was at a point where he's looking for change and something else to do, and we were that catalyst. So definitely pursued it, because I knew that, hey, to be able to scale, I can't be the only salesperson for long.
And one thing I always respect about Chris is that he was unabashedly you just would meet with anyone and everyone and ask questions. I mean, a lot like what we do on the show. I mean, just learning from other people's experiences. And I mean, I can't think of the number of times that, we were friendly competitors and,
Sure.
and just, I'd get a call from you and we go eat and I'd learn something from you and share something in return. But like, you never hesitated to kind of just pick up the phone. And I think it's cool because sometimes, if I'm going to be candid, there are probably times where, I've hopefully gotten better, but it's hard to reach out and ask for advice or help or whatever. So now we created a radio show around it. So like,
Get free advice, huh?
It's the Bob and Steve are not that smart. Somebody come in and help us
Well,
show.
I fit in well there, guys. I mean, I agree. I mean, one thing I learned early on is to put your pride aside as much as possible, right? Nobody knows everything. I'm come from a place of abundance mindset.
Yeah.
There's enough business, there's enough whatever out there to support everyone. And so if you can learn from a competitor or someone that's in the similar space, gosh, don't be shy. Go ask. Chances are they're happy to share and happy to help too. So I appreciate all that input along the way. Too.
Oh, no, gosh.
So 3 years to the first employee. How much time after that to the next one?
Gosh, probably another year or so. We moved out of the house and actually got a real office space, so we felt real cool. I actually got a sign,
Yeah.
We made it from a desk at IKEA.
And
so
people
it was really, it was really homemade, guys. But
And people just poured in after that, right? When they saw your
absolutely,
sign.
That was all it took, some slick marketing and a sign, and boy, we were off to the races. It was still a grind, still just like Steve was saying, meeting with a lot of people, kissing a lot of frogs, so to speak, just really learning and trying to hone who are we and how can we help. So I got a real servant's heart. I love to help people, and sometimes from a business standpoint, sometimes that gets in your way a little bit because you're so willing to help people.
So how do you differentiate yourself, though? Because, I mean, there are a million insurance agents out there, right?
Absolutely.
So when you go talk to people, I mean, the sob story of friends and family of, hey, I'm unemployed and I'm starting
That
this
wears
thing.
out after a few years, right?
I mean, that may work on your parents, maybe
Right.
even
you're still fed. You're okay.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, But that doesn't work on somebody that doesn't know you.
Sure.
So how do you then differentiate yourself? What is it you're offering that somebody else isn't?
Yep. So I think the biggest thing for us was that personal relationship. Kind of back to the scripture that we talked about is really taking interest in the business owners, right, and the families too. But specifically from a business standpoint, is learning what they're up to, right, and letting them know from the get-go that, hey, we're not here just to quote your business. Anybody can do that. We need to understand your business. We need to really dive into the risk management of what's going on. Anybody can put some policies in place, but to really give great feedback and risk management education I think, takes it to another level. So I think that's where we found ourselves being more successful.
There's a big difference between selling policies and solving problems.
Absolutely. There's no question. Anyone can sell a policy.
Yeah, so start with what are the needs, what are the objectives and goals of the organization, and then how does insurance fit into that?
Absolutely, and I think part of what sets me personally apart is having that background in underwriting. I went through the Travelers Underwriting Training Program, so we learned how to dissect policies. So I think that helps also to really look at the nuts and bolts of what the policy states versus maybe what the business owner thinks is insured or what maybe his agent told him
sold him
it was,
right?
Because typically it's not exactly what they may think or heard, and it's no knock on another agent, right? People hear what they want to hear. Everything's covered is the question I get all the time. Everything's covered, right? Yeah, sure. No, it's not.
No.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point because you made a comment, Stephen, that, whoever sold it to them. So if somebody's trying to sell you something, you probably shouldn't buy it. But if they're trying to say, what are your needs and how can we help you fill that need and cover that need, in your case with insurance,
Sure.
Well, that's a whole different dynamic. And I think that makes a lot of sense. So what were the biggest challenges that you faced along the way? Was it convincing somebody to use you versus another agent? Was it finding the markets to place the business? What was it, you think?
Keep going. Yeah, the list is long. I think starting from April losing her job, basically being laid off day one, I think that set the precedent for us that we can overcome anything, right? So it's just, I think from then on, it was a mindset of, hey, these are just hurdles, right? They're not, any of these challenges can be overcome. How do we do it? So yes, as a small agency, finding the right markets that you can represent to make sure your clients are getting the best products, that's a big challenge. We had several people that took a big risk on me, and so I'm greatly indebted to those folks from day one. Competing against larger agencies that, quite honestly, have more resources. There's no way to get around some agencies at that point. Just they had more people, they had more staff, they had more resources. So what it really came down to is that personal connection with the client and just the genuine care that I had for them. I think that really leveraged our skill set and ability too.
So did you outsource any services instead of that you later brought in-house?
No, that would have been smart. That would have been a great idea back then to do. Cash flow was just a huge issue for us, right? We were trying to support a family and grow this business, so it was kind of a double-edged sword. But we've learned. We brought in help. We kind of successed ourselves into a corner, so we had to hire people to really help us with the day-to-day operations, which was another big challenge of managing people and expectations was interesting.
When did you decide to go out and get your own space? What was it about? What was it about that moment in time that said, hey, it's time to get my own office versus continuing to work from home?
My wife was tired of people coming to our house to work. That was quite honestly the reason. It was a little weird when you got an employee and about to add another one, like coming in through a side door to your house, So the house setup we had was perfect. Again, it was another godsend. It had 2 offices that were built in with an exterior door. So it was really, we didn't buy that house on purpose. That's how it's set up. So it was great. But at a certain point, we started having children, and it was like, okay, the business is at a point where it does not need to be a home business anymore. We need to venture out and get a space. And quite honestly, like it's probably pride reason too, it made me feel cool. Hey, I'm not in my house anymore. I've actually got a real office. So that was part of it too. But mainly April saying get out.
Yeah.
Well, and I've talked to a lot of insurance agents in the past, and some go into like a retail shopping center with a big sign where you can see it as you drive by, and others go into office buildings. Which did you do?
We did an office building. For us, walk-up business was not something that we were really interested in anyway, and so it wasn't about that visibility. We had that office. It was off 75 in Knox Henderson for 3 years, and I bet we had 4 clients visit us there. So it was really more about a space to segregate myself to work, and that made us more legitimate, quite honestly, versus it being a client.
Is that what you did too, Stephen? You went into an office building too, didn't you, out of the house?
We started guest bedroom in our house, and I had the director of hugs that kept me through as our lab, because when you're cold calling and begging people to give you a shot, it can get pretty lonely, and so I mean that's how we started. But then eventually, I ran into the challenge where literally someone's like, "You guys are great. I think you're awesome." And by you guys, I meant like me and then my wife after she was through teaching at the end of the day, helping me at night. But, they were really put off by our home address on our business cards. And so we moved. At first, we rented a mailbox. And then once we, got to the point where we needed to like hire people, we made the shift and moved in an office space, which you helped me find, Bob.
Well, as I recall, I
Best
did. But
tenant ever.
tenant rep.
Tenant rep.
You were the best
I'm
tenant.
your best tenant, right?
Well, no, I think it's a good lesson, though, because I've had clients who have literally gone out and leased space, put up a big sign, and then just waited to see what happened, thinking that sign is suddenly going to magically create clients, and it doesn't. So you got to still get out there and hustle, be looking for clients all the time.
Absolutely.
Well, you're listening to The Next Level, Conversations that Propel Business on 1190 Talk Radio.
Stick around.
Hi, my name is Fern, and I've been an empowered team member at Alkali for over 5 years. I first learned about Alkali through an online job board and was intrigued to learn that Alkali was a Dave Ramsey endorsed local provider. But what captivated me was Alkali's mission statement, which is closely aligned with my own beliefs. So what's kept me at Alkali for over 5 years? First, Alkali's 5 core values match my own. Second, I've been empowered to use my unique abilities to impact our community, our clients, and Alkali. If you'd like to learn more about becoming an empowered Alkali team member, visit our website, alkaliservices.com. That's ALKALI services.com.
We're back with The Next Level, Conversations that Propel Business. Our guest is Chris English for the English Insurance Agency. And so, Chris, we've been talking about you growing your business and how you've done that. And is there anything you would have done differently if you were to have to do it all over again now, but with the knowledge you've had over the last 10 years?
That's a good question.
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I think it's one we should ask ourselves probably on a regular basis, right? Like where we are now, we only got there through those mistakes. But gosh, if you could go back,
right?
Yes, I am where I am because of all those mistakes and the challenges that we've made. But I think as I look back, I think one of the biggest things would have been to really try to bring team members in earlier. It feels like such a financial stress, but I think it's kind of cart horse, depending on what your skill set is. I think if you can, for me, it's on the connection and the meeting people and the sales side. But I got drug into a lot of the technical work because I was also good at it, and so the quoting and the ins and outs. And so I think for me, probably having a better vision of what it would have looked like 10 years from now and trying to build that earlier versus delaying it and just trying to kind of hold on to being an owner-operator type role.
I went through that early on too, and then I also went through a period where it switched from that to, okay, I'm willing to hire people, but then we weren't confident enough to spend the budget to hire the best people. And so I kind of learned that lesson twice in 2 different ways, and it was pretty painful. And it was just one of those things where when I look back, looking back, it was very kind of scarcity minded. Like
Sure.
it was just very much like, this is an expense. I've got to manage the expense. And what I realize now, after years in business and, as you said, fumbling through and stumbling through the mistakes, is that really people, to me, I mean, and it's not, I know it sounds cliche because everyone says it, but it's like really, really true. It's like they're the greatest investment in a business like ours, because like the return, one really great person is worth 2 mediocre people, in my opinion. I mean, it's been my experience. And so it's just such a huge thing. Last week I was out of town, and we had some rough stuff happen around the business, and it got handled. And it got handled, and it got handled perfectly. No, but I wouldn't have been any better if I was there. I mean, but it got handled well. And like that a few years ago, like that wouldn't have happened. I mean, it would have been a definite guaranteed interruption and stressor. So don't beat yourself up too much, because, man, that's a hard one to learn, I think.
Well, there's no question. I think as we've grown too, what I've realized is your clients deserve it, right? My clients, our clients deserve the best we can offer them, and that's not only the products that we sell, but also the people that we hire to be part of the team. And you know, I would assume everyone at this table doesn't expect anything less from anybody that we utilize, right? You want the best people handling your business.
Yep.
So I think that's one of the lessons learned too. Is to your point, maybe it's a budget constraint, maybe whatever. We all have to make decisions and we grow as we get there, but to answer the question, looking back, that probably would have been one. Is maybe I would have delayed a little bit more gratification for myself, or not taking a salary or whatever. Again, we were bootstrapped for a long time, but looking back, I think I probably would have tried to push a higher tier employee earlier.
It's a great insight.
So starting with the end in mind, which was the way you initially answered that question, had that vision for where you wanted to go and then gear everything toward that. That sounds good, but of course at that time you didn't know what that vision looked like because you hadn't gone through all the mistakes to reach that. So are there any things that you could have done at that time without that knowledge to sort of figure that out?
I don't know, right? Sometimes I question, did I have a good vision or was I just kind of blowing and going, right? And I think maybe the latter. I don't know that I had this big master plan on where I wanted to go. And you listen to podcasts, you read books, and it's like you got to have these great visions, and I absolutely agree. But sometimes it's just you got to survive, and you got to try to find a way to grow. And I think that was maybe the mindset that I was in, and I think it's probably just a lack of education, maybe immaturity, as a business owner, just trying to figure it all out, and learning how to ask questions of people. I think was probably the greatest asset I had, was realizing that, hey, I don't know everything. You better start asking because you're going to fail fast.
So who did you ask?
If you were breathing and I thought you were smarter than me, I probably was asking you questions.
Well, but I mean, like, for example, I
Obviously the bar was low because I said he called me a couple of times.
Yeah, he called Nooner. So, no, I guess what I'm looking for is more like, was there a mentor? Did you go to, like, the Small Business Development Center, talk to somebody from SCORE, those kinds of things?
Actually, all of those. I did go to SCORE, and I did talk to advisors in all realms. Hey, people I trusted, people I looked up to, and in all kinds of different industries. Was actually part of what we called it a mastermind group, which I think was a great thing that came along. It was 4 or 5 guys. We met every Wednesday morning for about 4 or 5 years, and different industries, and was kind of a forum to, hey guys, I'm screwing up here. I don't know what to do, and so it was nice. Kind of the mantra was, you can't give advice, you can only speak from experience, and so it made it a lot easier in that group that you didn't feel someone was just telling you what to do. It's like, hey, I just fired someone last week. Here's how it went, and so it helps give you that courage that you're not at it alone. So I think I don't have a specific answer. There was lots of different people that poured into my life in different instances that I think really had a big impact.
And this mastermind was just sort of an informal group of guys that just got together. It wasn't through some sort of,
that's correct,
the alternative board or EO or anything like that.
Nope, it was just kind of a random ragtag group of guys that were trying
to
figure out how to grow their businesses together. So in hindsight, maybe it would have been great to have someone that really knew what they were doing, but as we were in it, it was also great to be in the trenches with other guys that were doing the same thing, right, and actually experiencing the same pains that we were, and to have a place to voice those concerns, because good or bad, my wife worked with us for a while. I think probably most significant others bear the brunt of good and bad in business, but sometimes I feel like, it's not the best place to voice all your frustrations. You're still a leader at home, and in my case, I think my wife still depends on me to be that leader, so kind of emotionally dumping on her all the time is not fair to her either. So that group gave us a good place to bellyache sometimes, quite honestly.
Plus, you don't, want to run your better half off. In Chris's case, he married way up.
Yeah. Amen. Hopefully April's listening.
Clean sweep.
As we both did as well.
Exactly. But April's not working with the company anymore?
She made a transition recently, so she was with the hospice company for many years, and then she joined us again. So we were very blessed to be in a position to allow her to do that. Young kids at home, and so she ran our marketing and a lot of the personal line sales for several years. And she doesn't love insurance, but she loves people. So we found a way to make it work. But she's recently made a transition too.
So what is the major threats to the industry? What do you see changing or coming down the pike that could really threaten?
When you think about it, there's a term called insurtech, right? Technology's disrupting everything out there, and it's gobbling up all kinds of things. But quite honest, I think that is a big threat. But I honestly think it's people. I think insurance, people say insurance, and it's like, ugh, not very cool, kind of boring. And so I don't think there's enough young people being engaged in our industry. So I think that's a lot of the knowledge and expertise is being aged out in the insurance industry across the board. So I think it's a really big concern as you look 10, 15, 20 years, more so than even anything that technology can do, because at the end of the day, it's still people, right? I mean, you still have to sit down and talk to people and have care. And if we don't have the knowledge or the next generation of new leaders coming, I think we're in for a big trouble.
Depending on what study you read, Bob, and for the audience, the average insurance agency owner is between 61 and 63, depending on what you read.
Wow.
And so, I mean, like, you do the math, and then a lot of times their kids don't want to run the business. They don't want anything to do with it. A lot of young people don't want to go into the business, and so there's like a really, really big problem in the industry.
It's funny you say that, because when my wife was growing up, her dad was an insurance agent. He had started his own insurance agency in the late 50s, and she grew up thinking being in insurance was so cool and awesome. I mean, how could you get any better than that, right?
Awesome.
And then as she grew up and got into, like, say, college, and she realized, wait a minute, this is not what everybody thinks is the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
And it was a real surprise to her.
Sure.
And I thought that was great, because, I mean, obviously now she's looking up to her dad.
Yeah.
And, he was really good looking. He dressed so well and all the rest. So, of course it looked glamorous and great. And but it was funny that kind of popped her bubble later.
Well, I think the industry does a terrible job of recruiting, or has done a terrible job. I think they're waking up now, but for the longest time, like even when I came in, people say, well, why are you going into the business? Or like, why should I come into insurance? So, money, residuals, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay, well, that's great, but there's a lot of ways to make money. And so that doesn't resonate as much as it maybe did at one point, And so what I love about the business is that it is people. You can learn about people. You can learn about people's businesses. You can help them solve problems. And I honestly think the best agents aren't people that are super fired up about insurance. They are people that are super fired up about people and just happen to be good at insurance too.
Well, I think you're exactly right, because let's be honest, this piece of paper, this insurance contract is just that. And it doesn't matter until something really bad has happened in your life, right? And then it's really important. So I think there's a real value that I see, and I enjoy getting things right, because you really are helping people and helping businesses avoid what could be really catastrophic, problems.
Well, whenever I look at, when kids are growing up, what do they want to be when they grow up? In school, in like high school and younger, there's virtually no content about insurance, at least not when I was going through school. And then when you get to college, there are no insurance degrees, except, I guess, at SMU. I have one guy that I know who has an insurance degree. It's the only guy I've ever known in my whole life that had an insurance degree, but apparently they offer it there.
He's a super nerd, and I love him.
Oh, he is? Well, in fact, my wife used to work for him, and she still says he's the single most knowledgeable person about insurance she's ever met in her life. But anyway, my point is that just the system doesn't seem to be set up to really sort of honor that industry and to develop people into that industry. So I think the industry needs to do a lot better job of that than what has been going on.
And they're working on. I think things are getting better. And there's North Texas, Go Mean Green.
They're doing it.
They've got an insurance program now, and I mean it's coming around, but it was neglected for a long time. Yep.
All right, well, we're going to take another break. You're listening to the Next Level Show on 1190 AM Talk Radio.
Stick around.
Hi, I'm Suresh.
And I'm Shri. We were charged by Gurus. Thankfully, I didn't have to pay for this interview with Bob and Steven on the Next Level Show. Otherwise, I could be helping them reverse my own chargeback.
Welcome back. You're listening to the Next Level, Conversations that Propel Business on 1190 AM, and we're talking with Chris English.
So, Chris, what are you seeing in the industry in terms of consolidation? Is there much of that? I mean, when Stephen talked about all these agency owners that are in their 60s, that's the average. So there's a lot of people that are aging out of the industry pretty much. So are you seeing a lot of that being consolidated into bigger and bigger agencies?
That's a great question, and yes is the short answer. I think over the past probably 3 to 4 years, you've seen a real significant impact in agency owners selling or being acquired or consolidation across the board. So I think it's definitely something that has picked up significantly over the past several years.
And the headwinds have dramatically increased for the small agency owners too. I mean, the environment's just lending to it.
So is that because they by selling and joining a larger agency, they get access to more markets, provide more services to their clients? What is the
Yes, and yes. I mean, and it depends who they join, what they join scenario. But in general, that's the thought. And just clients are expecting more, and there's they deserve more, and if you're small, mom and pop, and it's been entirely just based on your relationship, people are they expect more value, and so you got to be able to deliver it.
right?
And so again, like headwind just comes, and then carriers have pressures, and they need to meet certain goals of their own, and it's hard to have a super fragmented, distributed with 5 gazillion insurance agents all selling one policy.
Right.
It's just hard. It's not an efficient model for them either.
Hmm. So you had this agency, Chris, for 8-9 years.
Mm-hmm.
And you've talked earlier about it. If you had to do it over again, you would have started with the end in mind.
Sure.
So do you have an exit plan? Do you have a strategy for what happens next?
That's a funny question to ask.
Totally leading question. I
Yeah,
know.
right. So based on that, yeah, I think Steve nailed it on the headwinds. I think that it's going to get significantly harder in the marketplace to compete and to compete in the level that we want to. I think that goes across all industry, from an insurance, personal lines, commercial. We talked about InsurTech. I think that is going to take away some of the smaller markets, whether it's personal lines or maybe even small business. So I think that the challenge is going to get harder and harder. So, we've had a great opportunity within the end of last year to really consider joining forces, and we're excited to do that and be able to join forces with a larger group.
So you have done that. It's already done.
Yep, absolutely. Effective, I guess it was late last year. We were super excited to be able to join forces with Steve and his group.
Oh, okay. I was wondering why we were talking to one of his competitors.
Right.
Just like we've been on the air, done the show for 2.5 years, and never had a direct competitor to one of the two of us. And all of a sudden, you show up. And I'm like, what's going on?
I was just recon. He's trying to find out what we were doing good.
Yeah, learn from the best, right?
That's right, exactly.
I learned one thing: Proverbs 8:2, 18:2.
So tell me how that process went. How did this conversation even start?
Gosh, I mean, it really was God's timing, and it's really amazing. And I don't throw that out there lightly either. Steve and I have been friends for a long time. We had talked about joining forces early on when he started the commercial division. It wasn't the right time. We talked about it probably multiple times over the years, and just wasn't the right fit or the right time. And so I'd seen a notice in some press releases on some opportunities that they had, and so I felt like I dropped him a quick note and said, hey, saw this out there, haven't talked to you in a while, how are things going? And then a couple weeks later, got a note back, it's like, hey, we need to talk. And I was like, oh, all right, man, whatever. So long and the short of it is we talked, and he let me know about some changes that were going on with them and some opportunities, and he felt like it could be a really good opportunity for English Insurance Group. So we kind of took a deep breath on it, really, and was like, well, I'm not sure. Your visceral reaction is no. It's my baby. Like,
right.
No, absolutely not. Like,
can't give up that name,
no,
right?
I've built it. My name is on that IKEA table that we hung as a board. I haven't gotten rid of it, by the way. It's in our garage. I can't do it. But anyway.
Why would you ever?
Yeah, so it was an emotional roller coaster, to be very transparent about it, right? Because you've got all this blood, sweat, and tears into building, quote unquote, your business, and so talked to my wife about it, prayed about it a lot, and really had to work through pride and anxiety and fear and all these different emotions that you have, and just came to the point where we felt like, everyone says the old doors kept opening. Well, they did, and then we got to this point where we were kind of at the edge of that cliff, and it was hey, everything had been answered. Now it's fear. Are you scared to make this next big change in the company's life, this next big transition in your life personally, or just ask, God was saying, do you trust me? Hey, you trusted me in the kitchen when April lost her job. Do you trust me now for these opportunities? And so we said yes. It's a great opportunity for our clients. There's more markets, more abilities, more knowledge that we can resource for them. So again, going back to clients, that was outside of me personally, which other than my wife, no one really cares what happens to me personally. It was about making sure that our clients were going to be in a better position for the future, and we felt like they really were.
That's interesting. So I know when when this happened with Stephen last year, because Stephen joined Assured Partners, which is sort of the big parent company last summer, and we actually did a show about it.
Sure.
And he had confided to me during that process that this was something that was being considered, and it was interesting because he really struggled quite a lot with the impact to the employees, the impact to the clients, the impact to he and Corey, what's going to happen with lifestyle. Am I going to fit into the AP universe? I mean, there were so many things to factor into that.
Yes.
That it takes a long time. From the time you guys had that first phone call talking about it to the time you actually finalized it, how long was it?
Gosh, Steve, I don't know. That was probably late spring, early summer, because it was pretty quick after you guys,
Yep.
and then it was right towards the very end of last year, November,
Like
when
6, 7.
everything was official. I mean, I think the big part is, like you said, there's just so many moving pieces that you hadn't thought about, right? And then when you really start having these honest conversations with yourself, they're not the easiest.
Yeah.
Talking about headwind, can we grow the way we want to? Can we service our clients the way we want to?
Well, now, once you sell, what do you care about growth?
Well,
Because you're an employee now, right?
well, sure, but let's be real. I'm an entrepreneur, right? So, and I think that's one of the things I enjoyed the most about. I've known Steve personally, so I knew kind of who we were helping hitch our trailer to, right? From a personal standpoint, that's huge. I think for any business owners, what is the culture? Who are the people? But back to the entrepreneur at heart, it was like, hey, I wasn't here to sell just to ride off into the sunset. I'm too young for that. I'm not one of those 65-year-old agency owners yet. So we've got a growth mindset, and the opportunity to expand the offerings that Alkali had and bring our team on board and bring our skill set was just super exciting. And so, there's no hiding it. We're ready to grow.
So what is your role now that you've joined forces with Alkali?
It's a great question. Right now, we're leading the commercial lines team. So that was my main passion and my main skill set. So I'm charged with helping build out, develop, and grow the commercial or the business insurance arm, which is very exciting.
Okay, so that is cool. So you've sold, but you've also stayed involved, and you have a very clear vision that you and Stephen are both in alignment on.
Absolutely.
For what you're going to be doing from here.
Yes, and I think that's the part of the most fun. Like you said, what we had done different earlier is I think I'd gotten, I won't say stuck, but in that mindset of, see it, kill it, see it, kill it, see it, kill it, and that's how we had gone is grow, but really hadn't ever slowed down to take some of that time for future planning. And I think that's one of the things that Stephen's been blessed with is that opportunity to slow down, to really see the future and how it's going to go. So I think that was a skill set that I was lacking in. And this has given me an opportunity to be exposed to some things and some different ways of thinking that I don't think I would have been otherwise. So, like I said, some soul searching there too on, hey, can you put your pride aside enough? Can you put all these other things that you've built yourself up to be like, hey, how do I introduce myself now? I'm not Chris English, the owner of English Insurance Group. Weird things. But I just felt led that this is the next evolution in English Insurance Group, and then really me personally in growth.
Interesting.
What I told Chris, the things that appeal to me about Chris is, the business, he built a great business. There's no doubt about that. But for me, Chris is the first person I reached out to after, and the reason is I knew his yes is yes, his no is no. I knew he was growth-minded. I knew that we had our core values were aligned. In such a way that would there be friction, would there be trouble, would there be challenges that we'd have, but I was very confident that there would be no one better to walk through that the first time with than Chris, and so far that's been my experience, and I look at it as a collaboration. I don't care what your title is. The bottom line for me is we're growing this thing, and we're going to make an impact, and we're going to deliver a lot of value to our clients, and that's what it's want. I want to build it together.
Absolutely. It's a great joy. Like I said, we're going to have troubles, but I think knowing when you've got a business partner, anyone you're dealing with, knowing their heart goes a long way, and it can help you smooth over any of the frustrations or trouble that you're going to have. Because let's be real, it happens, right? We're going to look up 10 years from now and say, oh, what would we have done 10 years ago? Well, if we would have known this. But knowing the type of people you surround yourself with, from employees on and mentors I think is super helpful. You can overcome anything.
So let's shift gears to the lightning round. Ask a few off-the-wall questions here. What's the one thing you need to stop doing?
quite honestly, it's reading email. Email. I know I have to,
Got to
but
communicate with people, right?
yeah, but it is. I don't know if anyone else suffers from it, but it's like the nervous twitch that never goes away. So I've got to do a better job of staying away from it. Probably that's tough.
Favorite book?
You know, there's several out there. I'm a serial starter. If anyone else is like, I'll start reading books and get about 6 or 7 chapters into it. So I may be able to answer what's the best first half of my books. Entre Leader is a great one. Then, Dave Ramsey book. And then Kid CEO, Ed Young is another great one. It's about raising kids that, is another struggle
Maybe you
in
need
life.
to learn about Cliff Notes.
Yes, for sure. That would be great.
Biggest pet peeve in business?
Steve said it, yes is yes and no is no. So I think that's one of my biggest things is if people say yes, I want them to be committed to it. And I'm okay with no's, whatever those are, but let's get to them fast and work through them.
Well, Chris, thanks so much for being our guest today. It's been
Thanks,
a joy.
Chris.
Thank you for being our first guest on our new radio station. We're excited to be here at 11:90 a.m. So I guess English, your English and Insurance Group, your URL's gone, so people need to go to alkaliservices.com to learn more.
That's it.
And go to nextlevelshow.com to learn more about the show, see who's coming up in the future and who we've had in the past.
And if you know someone who should hear this message, definitely help spread the word.
See you next week.
Have a great week.
Thanks, guys.